But let's go and jump back, and we'll talk about Delaware now and kind of go through some Delaware properties, some Delaware auctions, and talk about how Delaware works. There really is a good opportunity. They're all on-site auctions. So if you live within this area, I think it's worth it to look at the Delaware sales. This time we're going to be looking at Newcastle County and an auction that's coming up on May 10th.
March 10th.
March 10th, excuse me.
Yeah, so Delaware officially is classified as a redemption deed state. So full ownership rights aren't actually granted to the deed holder until the redemption period has expired. And Delaware has a 60-day redemption period on the property. So basically for 60 days there following the sale, there is the possibility or the chance the property could redeem. If it does redeem though, then you get a 15% flat penalty rate that would pay out, on it. So, again, if you paid $1,000 for a property, and it redeemed within that 60 days, you would get back your $1,000 plus a 15% flat rate of return on it.
Yeah, that's what's great about Delaware is we're only looking at a 60-day redemption period. Now, at the tax sale, they're going to hold both mortgage foreclosures and tax sale foreclosures in the same auction. So as you go to the auction, you'll be able to tell the difference, and we'll show you when we look at the list on what qualifies as a tax sale property and which one qualifies as a bank foreclosure. Now, the opening bid is going to start at the delinquent taxes, penalties, and fees, and it's going to bid up using a premium bid system like any type of auction. But one thing that is really nice is that only 60-day redemption period, and that actually starts not on the day of the sale, but when the tax deed was approved of, the foreclosure was approved of, which is generally anywhere between a week to 3 weeks before, a month before the sale. So at that point, that's actually when the redemption period starts. So what we're going to do now is jump on. We're going to look at a couple of upcoming auctions. We're going to look into the county record information and evaluate some of the sales that are coming up in the Delaware auction.
Yeah. All right. So we're looking at the Newcastle here.
Yeah, and we can go up to the sales data up at the top and click on the date. So on the right-hand side, we can go ahead and click on the 310 auction, and it's going to pull up all of the properties that are coming up. And then we've got to click search on the top left. So here underneath the plaintiff, we can see the different plaintiffs. And so there, first we can see U.S. Bank. Well, that's obviously going to be a bank. And as we scroll down the list, eventually we're going to either see something about a city or something from the county level. So as we scroll down, you can see that these are all going to be banks, different banks. These are going to be bank foreclosures. Then we can see Newcastle County. So all of these properties are essentially going to be tax sale properties. We have 3 here. I think there's a couple of more. There's some City of Wilmington auctions coming up next month. And we have the parcel number there. We have the address. If you click on the details, it kind of has the same information as well as we can see there. But really what's going to be most important for us is the address and obviously that parcel number. So they have a parcel search tool that's pretty easy to find. I think that we have that link shade for you as well, that we can go ahead and research the parcel number along with looking into the address on the property as well. So here's their parcel search tool. It's pretty easy to find. I just typed in Newcastle County, Delaware parcel search, and the very first link was the parcel search tool for looking at properties in this area. Click on the details. One thing that kind of worried me first is you can see that there was a demolition underneath the permit history. So you can see some of the different, there's a plumbing and heating, residential addition. All of this can be incredibly helpful for us, but I wanted to look at that demolition because automatically that's a bit of a red flag. But if we click on the details, we can see what kind of demolition it is.
Have an in-ground pool.
Yeah. So this is them doing things right. They got a permit. They had the pool demolished or taken out. Everything passed. You can see it passed. So in that case, we're pretty good. That's not a demolition of the property, and we kind of know what that is. We could also look at some of the additions that they put on. I didn't look at any of them, but that's going to tell us more about the property. We can see maybe when it was upgraded or when different things were done.
Yeah, we can see that it did pass there. This was in 2017. This was replacing the plywood on the roof.
That's good to know. That means that since this property, they've replaced the plywood, and they probably also at that time would have had to replace the roof as well if they replaced the plywood.
Yeah, this was a warm air furnace. Back when they did that. And this is clear back. The residential addition is probably old. Let's see. Heating, cooling ramps.
Back in 2006. So we do know that there's been some work on the property. They have if there's any type of code violations, they have it listed there, which this property doesn't have. We also have the GIS map at the top. We get an idea of kind of the value of the property, valued at about $387,000 on 0.2 an acre. We can see some of the sales information. Looks like it's sold in 2010, and then for some reason they don't have the sell date available on the most recent sell. But it's within the same. See how it's the same person.
Yeah.
Alexander went on to it.
And we can see a historical value of the property here. That's the tax bills and tax payments here. This is a pretty detailed assessment record here.
Yeah, so here's kind of where the opening bid would be. We can see the county balance due and the school balance due. So this property is going to start at about 45 plus 15 will be around the opening bid amount. And then we can go and look at the property value. I mean, that's going to be quite a bit, $70,000, $65,000 opening bid. We'll have to see what the property is valued at to see if that makes sense. But we can do that pretty quickly by looking up the property address and seeing and doing a quick check of market value.
So this is our house right here. And it's like that's from May of 2012. It's about when that image came from. But at the time, it was in decent shape here. It looks like usable shape, and it looked like it was being used, and it also has a wheelchair accessible ramp there on the side that we can see.
Yeah, a little bit older photo, but at that time the roof looked good. We always talk about looking at the outside to try to make a determination of what the interior looks like. So 319,000, that means the opening bid is starting around 20 cents, maybe a little less than that. And then we'll check and see what Redfin values it as well. Now, what's kind of interesting is that Zillow is actually valuing it less than the county is valuing it.
So they're about 80,000 over what Redfin's 80,000 over Zillow.
Well, in the county has a value of 365, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, or 387.
387, yeah.
And so at least we have an idea that it has value. We're going to do a comparative market analysis. We're going to find properties that have sold right around this to really determine what we think the value is. And then, of course, get an idea. Now, the fact that there's only a 60-day redemption period increases the chances that you're going to be able to acquire the property. So in this case, we're going to do the same type of due diligence that we would with any type of tax deed. We're going to get an on-site evaluation here because those photos aren't going to be good for us. We can't trust this photo from 2012 or even a photo from 2026. Something could have happened over the last month where, suddenly what looks like a good investment that you're going to pay $100,000 for ends up being a bad investment because it's been burnt down.
Yeah, I think other than that though, the numbers are pretty good. It has good high value there. Property valued around 400,000.
Yeah, now we can go look at another property on that list.
So that was the first property we're looking at right here. Here's the second property.
Yeah, go ahead and grab that. kind of the same information, so you can kind of copy and paste that one.
Let me grab the parcel number.
And we'll go ahead and do another parcel search. You can see that the process is pretty simple. Now, once we do that, we decide that, hey, I do want to bid on this property. Well, that's where we're going to go through stage one. We're kind of going through stage one due diligence right now. We're going to go through stage two due diligence, then go through stage three due diligence, where we do on-site evaluations, we determine the market value, and then we set our high bid price based on what we think the market value is.
This one is commercial property, valued about $370 though.
You see it's on 0.14 an acre. As we scroll down, is there any additional information that we can see on? We can see it's an auto body, or at least that's what they have it recorded as, and they've owned it for quite a while.
Yeah, since 2000 or earlier.
Yeah, so about 25 years. We don't see any type of zoning. I'm not zoning issues, but we don't. There's what the balance is on it.
Yeah, my goodness, the county balance is only 7,000. The school balance is 72,000.
That is ridiculous. So it's about $80,000 opening bid. And see what the property is there. We could also look at the GIS map as well and get an idea of where the property boundaries are.
Yeah, GIS body shop there.
So this photo is kind of old as well. These are actually older than most of the photos that you'll find. But what is interesting, it's a business. So we're going to look up and see, is this still in business? Is it vacant? When was it last in business? That's one of the big advantages with commercial property, is that if there was some type of business there, we could look up the business name, we could look up the address. I'll always do a Google search on the address and also the business name, the last business name, to see if I can find out, is it still in business? And if it's not in business, when was the last time I can see activity of business being there?
Yeah, this one looks like it, at least at the time of the photo, it was in operation. But that's what, sending somebody by or getting new images of it could really tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we could Google the name of that. We could Google the address as well and find out more about it. Let's look at maybe one more. Look at the next one down.
Can we see what this one opens up for? I guess it doesn't really tell us here. Let's see what the property is.
Yeah, the only way you can see it is through the county record information. So they don't have the opening bids pasted there, but we can see what it is when we look in the county records, because we can see what's currently being owed.
So this one looks like it's a commercial, also valued pretty high here. So it's almost 1 acre here, but it looks like it's valued at $859,000.
Yeah, we can see that they got an HVAC permit. We can see that there's some type of zoning verification process that was completed on it as well. We can see when it most recently sold for, back in 2006. And that $110, that's it's essentially kind of hidden. And so, the last sale that we can see that actually took place was 60,000. It sold since
600.
then. Yeah, 600,000. It sold since then, but they did it in a way where they didn't have to put the full amount down. But we'd go ahead and look at the address, maybe look at the GIS map at the top. Kind of see what you can see recent sales as well. Up there at the top, we talked about looking into the different maps. That's the sales map that we could look for sold properties there. And then over on the left-hand side here, you can see zoning. You can go down there and click on the different base maps. So here they have zoning. So if we're looking at land, that may have a layer that we can click on to find out, what the zoning for that particular lot is.
Yeah, we can see the overhead image here on this one. Oh yeah, they do have, so it's an I there, I think, on it for,
Industrial.
yeah. Or
Look at
copy
that
that.
address as well. This one may not have a street view. I can't remember if it did or not.
No, no street view here.
It's in an industrial park. You could probably get out there on Century Park and see what it looks like from there, but
Down there. I think, yeah.
so it's an industrial, it's in an industrial park, some type of big industrial building. And with commercial property like this, we would probably get on LoopNet or a website like that to find, good comparable properties. We really can't use something like Zillow for commercial property. But I would bet that it's worth over a million and a half. That's me just guessing. I looked quickly. It's some property. I didn't really look too far into it. But for commercial space, industrial space, some type of business, factory, smaller factory or warehouse, it really could be a good business. We'll look at some of the properties quickly that are coming up, and then we'll go ahead and answer any questions that you guys have. Go back up to the top and let's look at the ones that are taking place next month, just so we can see the difference between county properties. So these ones that we're looking at are being sold by the county. There's certain places in Delaware where cities will offer them as well. So as we're looking at the plaintiff, we can see which properties are going to be mortgage foreclosure properties. And then as we get down there, we can see the city of Wilmington. So these are going to be taxable parking. In fact, Shade, over there on the right-hand side, right below the name, you can click on that parcel number. The parcel number's right there. Oh, right there in the middle. Sorry, that 20. Sorry, no, it's between city of Wilmington. Yeah, that one. The other one's a parcel number as well, but to look it up, you can't have the dashes in there. And so we can look up any of these properties as well within the county and, see what the county records are.
Yeah, this one looks like it's a home, residential, valued at about 198. And yeah, just pull up the property address here on it.
Ooh, that's a little rough.
Yeah.
How bad's the rest of the street? Not too great across the street. As you get further down that other way, is it any better to the left down there? Now, this is back in 2020. These are some old street views. It would all depend on what the values are there. If they're valued at, 300,000, 250, 300,000, then maybe it's worth rebuilding them. But definitely in a property like this, we're going to look into the market and get an idea. We've looked at some areas like in Philadelphia where they're really rehabbing the properties. In fact, some of those to the left look like they were rehabbed a little bit.
Yeah, but most of these look better, I mean, that was kind of the worst part. I'll bet probably one of the worst parts of town.
Well, and
At least worst neighborhoods anyway.
The photos are also 5 years old.
Yeah.
So some of these areas where might have already started going through some type of revitalization effort. But
Yeah.
there's a bunch of different properties that are coming up. This is really kind of one of those areas, if you live within Delaware, when we talk about location-based investing and opportunity-based investing. Opportunity-based are those auctions that are taking place one time a year, usually going to be, so maybe outside our area, but there's only one chance to bid a year. A location-based is states like Florida, Texas, Delaware, that have multiple auctions a year. You know, in this case, most of the counties have properties every single month. Now, not all, sometimes they'll skip a month or two, but there's usually going to be auctions every month between one of the 3 counties in Delaware. And there's only 3 counties that we're dealing with. So there is always opportunity there for you to go back, and if you live within Delaware or close to there, this may be a market that you want to look into because you have multiple chances to buy within that market each year.
Yeah, there's some interesting properties too. You know, I mean, the mix of property types here could be worth going after. I mean, that kind of looks like that could be an interesting property. That's another one right there.
Well, and we don't have to spend a ton of time doing the research. Just something even as quick as a Google Street View, if we're looking at structured property, could tell us immediately if it's something we want to look more into. You know, but you know, it's not too bad. Let me look into the county record information. Let me look into the market value, and then we go through stage 1 due diligence. And if it's a property that we're interested in, depending on how quickly the auction is taking place, we'll either, you know that that's a property that we're going to research later, or if the auction's coming up, we'll go directly into stage 2 and stage 3.